Okay. So we're going to come to the second panel discussions about the role of PropTech in the sharing economy. Sharing economy has been taking the world by storm and changing the way we live and work for the past decade and a half towards a flexible, connected, and environmentally conscious future. How much impact this movement is making in Vietnam, however, is yet to be fully and systematically understood. Co-working startups are competing with traditional commercial real estate investors, while co-living startups are disrupting the residential market through new models of space usage and living. So I would like to invite the moderator of the second panel, Ms. Yên Vu, CEO of B Group. And follow up with the panelists, Mr. Greg Ohan, CEO of Sentry. Mr. Minh Bui, CEO of Beta Group and A.Plus Home. Mr. Alex Crane, Manager Director of Knight Frank Vietnam. Thank you.
Ooh, me with three guys, man. I'm so honored to be, moderating this panel. I think sharing economy, right? It's a very characteristic of technology, which acts like an enabler for us to have, more innovative solutions and business models. And I think who in the audience is actually working or having something related to sharing economy? Can you raise your hand? Ooh, not a lot. 10, 20%. Okay, that's great, that's great. So I only have 30 minutes to get the best out of, good-looking speakers and shed some light on the sector. So I think I start with Minh. Minh, you are special. You represent, a lot of different industries, not just the one we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You're coming from entertainment, and production, as well as cinema operation, right? Education, and also of course real estate and co-living. Can you share like how did you approach the whole co-living business, and how did A.Plus Home come to life?
Thank you, Ian, and hello to everyone. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's been such a long time, being in an offline event. I used to do this before COVID, but then COVID happens, and then everything happens online. So it's a new feeling to be here today. So a little bit of introduction about myself. I came back to Vietnam in 2014, and I started a chain of affordable cinemas called Beta Cinemas. Now we have 15 locations across the nation, and during COVID, I decided to start to look into the co-living sector. The reason why I started to think about this is that the cinema business is great, and it's give me good return and decent growth, but it couldn't scale fast enough, and the market had a certain size limit that I feel in a few years it will start to hit a certain sort of ceiling that might be difficult to break through. Whereas in the real estate market, it's a huge market, right? Like the market size is just so big. In Vietnam alone, I think if I look into the segment that we were looking into, about $250 per month per room, per studio, that is the market that we are focusing on. The market size is $4 billion. So it's a lot bigger than the cinema market, and I feel like it's such an opportunity to be disrupted. Also, during my business with Beta Cinemas, I started to be in contact with a lot of young professionals of Vietnam, and they came from, provinces. They came from places far away, and they came to the big cities to try to stay and try to live and work. And yet, because they couldn't afford a very nice place, they don't have a lot of income just yet. So the places that they can afford, given the budget of one person is only, let's say, $100, $120, $130 US. With that price, they couldn't afford a lot of options. And the option that they have currently having in Vietnam is really bad in terms of quality, in terms of the infrastructure, but also the way that they are being treated. So I felt like there's a huge opportunity there for me to do something about it. And I was looking into it, trying to figure out what is the best way to do it. And to be honest, like we are still in the process of figuring it out, right? Miss Harley just now said that she's a virgin in the market, and I think I am too. I am a virgin in this market as well. We've been in this market for about 2 years, but there's so much learning that we are still accumulating over time. But I'm very excited because we already figure out some stuff, right? Like we already have certain product, business model that are profitable, but we're also trying to figure out how to scale faster. And we are also, trying to figure out that mix as well. What is the right mix between scaling and also profitability? And we all understand, like the tech market recently have a lot of, news coming up. And I think that is like the signal from society, telling startups like ours, like A.Plus, that we need to be profitable sooner rather than later. That is the signal, and so we're taking it in and we're trying to sort of internalize it and build it in the business model. Sorry for ramping on, but I got carried away. Thank you.
I asked Minh because I think it's very interesting and diverse from your experience, right? You're looking at it from different angles and also looking at the economics as well. So I want to step back a little bit. Greg, given your experience, like blended, right, real estate, traditional, and also co-working, do you want to kind of share with the audience like the broader definition of PropTech and also how you see it helping space owner and managers to kind of identify new growth?
I have a serious question. When you said those 3 good-looking guys, you started with Minh because you think he's the best looking, right? Alex?
I'm last.
Yeah. I don't know, I would have thought maybe you or me. I just want to clarify the important things before we move forward.
So important.
We need a separate session for that.
Okay. I have a confession. Unlike Minh, I'm not a virgin. To real estate. Sorry. Just maybe a little bit of a background. I think a few familiar faces in the room, which is great. I'm the CEO of the Sentry, where you are today. Our main business is asset management. We build and mainly operate office buildings, including the building you're in now. This building was built a couple of years ago. That's how we started. You probably saw my partner on stage earlier. You can't miss her. She has purple hair. Twee, put your hand up. Okay, it's pink from this angle. But basically what we did was we fell into a sector which we really love and we're really passionate about, which is flexible working and now flexible living, which is co-working, co-living, but we try not to move towards that because we think community is a little bit more permanent and a little less transient. And so how that falls into PropTech, I think PropTech is a really loosely used term. We have a number of members here which are PropTech, but they're really more FinTech. But for me, PropTech is simple. Anything that's property related that creates efficiencies in your day-to-day operation in real estate. And for us, we're really passionate about it. We have a stand in the back. Here's a little plug. We're launching a PropTech app. It's an asset management app. We're operating it here. It's one of the first. And we built this because PropTech is so featured and so focused on the front end, which is the customer side, but the back end is neglected, which is the technical, the maintenance, the operational part of a building. So when we think about PropTech, for me, it's really about buildings and property itself. And so for us, that's how we would effectively define it. But again, the last thing I'll say is technology is only as good as the user and what you do with it. So I'm going to disagree with my mentor, Mark. I think you need to put away the notepads. I think you need to stop using pen and paper. And I think words like disruptor should not be taken off the table. I think it's a given now. Technology is everywhere, and if you haven't adapted to it, the decision makers with the money are not over 50 years old. They're all under 40. And so I think it's a given, and I think today is a great platform for everyone to be aware of it and to start adopting it.
And the second part, like specifically how you think PropTech is kind of helping or, helping the space owners and managers to identify growth?
I think PropTech's great for us anyway. Here we have a front-end platform we use for managing our members. So what it allows us to do, it gives us efficiencies, like the guys mentioned before as well. It gives us transparency. It helps us collect data, but the main thing is technology helps us scale. We started with one flexible office project, and by the end of the year we'll have 7, including a flexible living concept. And we're purely doing that through technology and using our platforms to scale the business. So I think efficiency and scalability.
A little bit of different viewpoint as well, Alex. Given your super diverse experience within not just market, right? What do you think about the economics? Because there's a lot of talk, like Minh mentioned, right, about technology companies keep burning cash and never seen the profit trajectory. What do you think about the economics and the sustainability of this whole co-living, co-working, like the WeWork movement?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a space in the market for it fundamentally. So we know that there is demand. Co-working, there's something like 50,000 centers across the world now. So, it's bedded in. We've gone through the sort of peak to trough of disillusionment with the WeWork, and we found that stability now, I think, across the platform in the co-working sector. So the fundamentals are all behind it. Private equity wants to get into it. If your investors are there knocking at the door, okay, I think we're safe, and I think Vietnam's got a great future. I think here, the space available is growing about 30% a year on average, so the demand is here for it. Co-living's kind of different and new. Fundamentally the same business, head leasing, providing service, running operation. We'd probably look at that more as an asset similar to service apartment, hotel, in terms of how you're valuing that. I think, again, it's just looking at these things from a valuation perspective. The days of cash burn have to go, and we have to rationalize that part of the market. But again, if you're going to do something like co-living, you're doing it in Vietnam with the golden demographics, I think. So I think again, the investors, they're looking at the door, and I think with some caution in terms of how the operators go with co-living, I think that they're here to stay. I think again, scale is important when you're operating things like this, and that's probably more the case of co-living.
Hello? Okay. We talk about economics, right? Do you think it's still a rental business with some constraint of the traditional business, or is it require a lot bigger scales to make it, like a really technology kind of business model?
I think technology is the enabler, as you say, the management of it. It's a pretty low-tech concept, actually. It's bricks and mortar and leasing space, you're right. But in terms of how that's presented, marketed, run, then that's where I think technology sits into that. You can expand that further into sort of construction, building M&E. This sort of part of technology plays an important factor there in the bricks and mortar, of course. But I think it's an enablement factor for essentially, and I don't want to make it sound trivial, a bricks and mortar kind of business, leasing business.
Totally.
For me, the way I see it is a combination of technology and efficiency when you get into the co-living model. When we enter the market, the first location that we opened was a pure brick and mortar investment, and we went all the way, make it a very nice co-living place. And it did okay, like we made profit, but the payback is very long. So then we decided to switch gear a little bit and try to scale using the partnership model. So with the partnership model, basically we don't invest in the size. We just partner with the people who already have the rooms and the units ready, and we scale very, very fast. But the margin is terrible. You can imagine, right? So now we are switching back again a little bit to figure out like the sweet spot of finding locations where we come in and we take over, and then we put in a little bit of renovation, just a little bit, so that the payback is very, very good. Yeah, unit economic is great. We pay back within less than 2 years, and we can still have more scale. because the investment side for each location is very minimal. So I think for a business like ours to be successful, it has to figure out the right mix. How much are we gonna, sell, invest, and we still have to scale, using the other model, so that we can have a totality of different mix, and we can sort of tweak and change here and there and figure out what is the optimal way to do it, even to respond to the funding market, right? Like, when the funding market getting very tough, we still have to rely on the sides that are generating positive cash flow so we can survive and get by. So I think we have to be that way. We cannot just, go one direction. And I think, so the key word for us right now is gradual improvements, right? Because without technology, without companies like ours, there are already people going out, out there taking over sites and do some renovation and lease it out to the market and make good profit. So, I don't think we should overemphasize the importance of technology. I mean, it's great and it could add a lot of efficiency, but we shouldn't think that it's going to solve everything. It's not going to be like, the one size fit all, that as long as you invest in technology, you're going to win. It's never like that. So for me, I think as long as we can do a little bit of a better job, applying a little bit of better technology in the system and figure out that mix, then we're going to get there. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I love it because I don't think 100% of people approach the PropTech business like that. Like, not a lot of people think about the mix, right? And I think given the macro situation, right, where cash might not be that easy, I think that's the most sensible, and not everyone has the capability and the skills to do that neither, right? So that's a good test as well. Do you have any comment on the co-living part or the model?
I agree with you. I think one of the differences is a lot of the time PropTech and some of the platforms that are created by nerds who are coders who are sitting behind their desks in offices like this and have never actually run and operated buildings themselves. So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense because they don't understand the actual economics and the implementation of it. So I would agree with you there. I think the difference is you have a great tech platform, but it's all about how you implement it and manage it. And if you don't do that well and it's not efficient, then there's no point having it, right? Yeah.
Totally. The importance of actual operational experience, right? It's a good pathway. I think today we have a lot of representatives from developers, right? A lot. I've seen a lot of faces. So Alex, I want to come back. You've been working with, advising, and seen a lot of things. What do you think on the developer side, the big and powerful ones? What are they actually thinking about? This whole PropTech movement. What are they thinking, talking, or actually doing something? And to what degree? And what kind of speed are you seeing?
It's not fast enough, and actually there's a lot being said, but not a lot being done. And I think it's often, as developers are going through any form of value engineering, it's the part that gets cut first. That said, the market will demand it. This can go into ESG, whether it's accredited buildings for environmental standards. Technology has to come into this as well. Occupiers are going to demand it. So, if you're building the best buildings, if you're selling the highest priced apartments, you've got to actually, raise the standards of what's actually being put into them. That, again, it can go down to technology within buildings. It can go down to management, parking management, whatever it may be. I think there's a huge arena here in the retail segment. If you look at mall management, it's terrible. It's an easy thing to fix with technology in terms of wayfinding. Promotion, it's just not being done yet. So a lot being said, nothing happening. The occupiers are going to demand it though. Multinational companies are going to want it in the best buildings. High-end buyers of residential real estate are going to demand it. So this is the forum, I think, that hopefully the developers who are here, and thanks for the ones that are here, hopefully meet some interesting people with new ideas here.
Is there any particular reasons or forces behind that make it difficult for them to start moving?
I think, like Mark said, I think a few maybe are a little bit scared. Many of us probably don't understand enough. And then I think it's got to be a consumer-driven change. And I think ultimately that's where it'll come back to. As things are going to get more competitive here as a marketplace, developers are also going to want to find their little niche and the competitive edge. And I think technology, whether it allows transparency, regulation, ultimately they'll buy it if it's efficient and makes them more money.
Or foster change, I hope.
I think consumers have to demand the change.
Okay, that leads to Minh. I want to ask because you work with a lot of younger generation, right? Younger audience, and also build a lot of products for them. What exactly is the core living, business model is solving for them? And do you see any, trends in behavior that we need to pay attention to?
So this comes back to my point that I made earlier about gradual change. Sometimes when we enter the market and we look at the co-living models from outside of Vietnam and we get inspired and we think that is what the young people want and need. But then, usually when you do something that is so innovative and so it takes so much effort, it means it's going to be very costly. And because I work with young people, I understand that they are very budget conscious and there are things that they want, but at the same time, they don't want to pay for things that they might not necessarily need. And so it's the approach that we have been doing is just, looking at the current situation and figure out, okay, first of all, what are the things that can be improved without costing so much money? So that is the soft stuff, right? You can improve the customer service quality, for example, because we as a company being set up properly, we can do that well. So we have like communication channels that are very easily accessible. We have certain protocols to talk to the customers. Even those little things are already a big improvement. Because if you look at the current situation of the demographic that I'm currently serving, they have nothing like that. They go out there and they deal with the landlords that are just, mom and pop and there's nothing in place. So even little things like that. But then we try to shy away from too much innovation in terms of reconfiguring the place. Because that would mean a very high investment cost up front. And sometimes also it doesn't completely meet the requirements of the tenants. So when you ask about the trends, a few things that I think we can note here. I think young people nowadays are more willing to share, and also the gender difference, like they don't mind sharing with a different gender. So that is one of the key change that we notice, when we enter the market. Also something very surprising for us, like when we open rooms that have double beds, we assume that it's gonna be mostly couples, but then we see like two straight guys or two straight girls, they're okay with sharing that as well. So that is a very interesting cultural thing in Vietnam, I think. He got too excited.
I was going to say we have the same problem here with our shower rooms.
Oh.
But we try not to let two people in at once. I can't confirm whether they were both straight or gay, but...
no, it's not about the sexuality,
confirm.
but when we actually talk to the customers, we actually talk to the tenants, two ladies sharing the same room using the double bed. You just say, it's like, ngủ này ấm hơn ấy. It's like it's more warm during the night. Just, that's a very particular cultural thing here that you wouldn't expect coming from the US or other parts of the world.
It may lead to a new business model as well. I don't know.
And and then all the other trends, you can easily predict, right? Like young people are more comfortable using technology. They demand instant information. So they want to know exactly like if they can move in, if they can see the see the place this afternoon or not, things like that. So technology is solving all that. And also we are launching a buy now pay later scheme for the rental as well. And we see a lot of young people are open for that. So that means that they also want financial solutions to help them to engineer how they spend the money. Those are the few change that but it's predictable, right? It's nothing surprising, except for the, same gender sharing part.
You know, that's funny. We have a nap room here. You'd be surprised. People who normally don't even talk to each other during the day will nap next to each other in the nap room. So yeah, I agree with you. I think when it comes to the way people live and work, it's changed a lot, and people are a lot more relaxed about it, you know.
Yeah.
That's great. Greg, you kind of touch on it. So obviously, like where we are today, right? It's becoming more and more common as a kind of not just a workplace, right, but more like a social playground. And there's two keywords that increasingly during and after COVID people talk a lot about, which is well-being and mental health. Where you seeing this, like this whole sharing movement? How can it help, or how can it impact, or if any?
Yeah, it's maybe just talking about after COVID. I think the way people live and work now is very different, and I think, well, I believe and I see it here with our project. The way people work in Vietnam is very different to the way people work in Singapore or Hong Kong or the US or Australia. I think the reality is after COVID, most of the people don't want to stay home. People want to come to work. They want to be in an environment that's collaborative, that's innovative, that's inspiring. So one of the things we found here, and when we first started, we didn't really expect it. You know, you read about community, it sounds a little bit fluffy, but the reality is when it comes to that aspect, that's what inspires people. So, you know, small things like we do yoga Tuesday mornings. This is exactly where the yogi is, and you guys are where all the students are. You know, we have happy hour every Friday. We do croissants on Mondays. So that community aspect is great. And for companies, not just entrepreneurs, it also ticks the corporate social responsibility box as well. It's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to come to an office, share the tea area, sit next to someone else at lunchtime. You know, not all companies like it. But from our experience, I think this is a trend moving forward. And I think it's for two reasons. One, people want to be inspired, but it's also for affordability as well, and flexibility, basically. Three, after COVID, companies want all the benefits, but they also want to be able to manage the risks. They want inspiring spaces, but they can't sign leases for 5 years and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think those two things play into the wellness as well, but community plays a huge part. And just you guys being here today, this is one aspect of it.
We meant like all of this are very new, right, to the workplace and also the co-living movement. I don't think we think of this as a norm like 5-7 years ago. And again, it's very new, right? So any advice for new players to come in, like from your operational experience? What can they learn from the traditional players?
From the non-virgins? I think the coming to Alex's point, one of the differences in Vietnam is people haven't had to think outside the box. Developers haven't had to think outside the box. It's a market where, for co-working, for example, you have a occupancy rate. What is it, Alex? The office rate?
90%.
90%. So there's only 1 or 2 buildings built every, 18 months, 24 months?
That's right.
Yep. So when you're building a building and you don't really need to do anything exciting, are you going to do something different? Are you going to do something inspiring? Probably not. So I think it takes people with passion to do something different and to change the status quo in the market. And I think for anyone coming into the market, put your hand in your pocket, expect a loss for a while if you really want to create something inspiring. If you're just looking at your IRR and your return rates, it's not going to happen, and you need to go back to Singapore. The second thing is, it's all about your local partner. You might want to come to the market and think you know what you can do and you've done it in another market, but unless you have a good local partner, and by local partner, if it's a co-working space, it's going to be the developer. We bypassed that. We became the developer, so we don't partner with landlords a lot of the time. We invest in the space, and that makes it easier. So I think to your point, it will be finding the right partner and doing something different, investing a little bit more.
or partner with somebody like Minh. Yeah. A rather final question before we open up for questions. One regulation change that you wish to happen in this market?
Easy. Land titles. Just some transparent register of property ownership would be wonderful.
Indexing
Land
database.
registry, that's it. Yeah.
Hello. For me, I think it's a stronger enforcement when landlords default on the rental contracts. That's the risk that we see in the market here in Vietnam. Let's say if we come in and we do a major renovation of the place and the landlord wants to default, want to take back the locations, usually it's very difficult for us to go to the law enforcement and demand justice. So that is something that I think, I hope that there will be positive change in the future. Yeah.
Like the recent cases we see, right, with all the retailer brands, and it's a concern that probably limit some of the investments.
It is, and it is also the reason why we try not to go with the model where we have to invest too much in one location. And that's why now we have a very light capex investment model, so that even if that's the case, then we lose, a minimum investment.
They took my two. I would just say, coming back to your point, maybe about people coming in to set up, just requirements for foreign ownership when it comes to companies and setting up. It's, Vietnam wants to attract investment and foreign investment, but they don't really make it that easy for foreigners. So I think that side of things. We've got a few lawyers in the front. Maybe Dow can touch on it later. But yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
I may just cut the queue first and ask Ms. Dowd maybe to share what your view on their wish, and are we heading to a positive direction in this particular topic?
Yeah, I mean, I came to Vietnam in 1995 as a lawyer, so at that time, there's no local developers, and foreign developers can only build hotels, service apartments, and hotel service and office buildings, and they have to joint venture with the local partner that is a state-owned company or companies, and they have to commit to transfer the fixed asset at the end of the term back to the Vietnamese side without any compensation, and every 5 years the shareholding of the Vietnamese side increases until the end of the term. And, to see where we are now talking about co-working, co-living, and everything else, tokenization, it's amazing where Vietnam, in less than 30 years have really, and even at that time, there's no condominium. So I helped develop the condominium laws because, and people didn't want to live in the high floors because they wanted to be low, closer to the land. So to see Vietnam changing all the laws to allow that, allow foreign developers to build for sale, allow freehold, is just, and, recognizing that real estate has value before it doesn't, So to me, it's definitely going in the right direction.
Thank you so much. Maybe we would like to open for Q&A now. Feel free, don't be shy. If you have a question for our lovely and good-looking
So I have a question to Minh Beta. Because I've been following his A.Plus home journey for a while, and I have been wondering, in order to build a successful co-living model in Vietnam, should think you would target the efficiency side on the brick and mortar business more than, or building the platform side, which is leveraging more technology. Because in my opinion, I look at a lot of co-living business models in Singapore, in Hong Kong, even in Indonesia right now. most of them are burning cash a lot. And with the economic and whatever political conditions of today, a lot of technology companies are not no longer sustainable. So how do we sustain a co-living model in Vietnam? Let's say in the next 5 years, without burning too much cash.
Thank you for the question. I think I did talk a little bit about this in my sharing, but I'll share a little bit more. So I don't want to call A.Plus a co-living company, because I think when we define ourselves as a co-living company, it has a certain idea about what we need to build and what we need the locations to be like. I only think of the company as a PropTech company solving long-term rentals problems in this market in Vietnam for the particular demographic that I am focusing on, which are those young professionals who have only about $100 per month to spend on rental. So that is the solution that we need to come up with to solve problem for them. And so that could mean just coming into, let's say, the most recent location that we cite, it has 10 studios, and we only need to invest about $1,000 per room, right? So basically, it's a very minimal investment. But when we come in, we can lease the room for about 4.5 million Vietnam dong per month. But with that renovation and we put in the furnitures, we can lease it out for 6.5, and that the payback will be less than 2 years with the occupancy that we can deliver given our network of tenants. And so, do you want to call that a co-living location? I don't know, right? It's not my intention to make sure that my location will be a co-living location. My intention here is to optimize the business, optimize the efficiency, make sure that we deliver the best possible experience for the customers, install certain things like clean water, filter water, so things like that. So I don't see that as a co-living location. I just see that as an opportunity to optimize the business. And back to your question, whether we should optimize efficiency or scale, like I mentioned, it's a mix. For us, we have to figure out what is the right mix. And as long as we can have the payback less than 2 years, I think investors are going to be happy. So we have enough money to sort of, keep building that. And then we can think about, okay, now that we have a certain sort of light up of locations that are doing well in terms of efficiency, how do I improve scale, right? So then we'll invest a little bit of money in signing up the partnership models so that we have more locations in the system. We can, have enough capital to sort of have the technology to back up the whole thing. And then we have a beautiful business. And that's my goal. So I hope that answers your question. I don't think we are a co-living company. That's the key.
Yeah. Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Sorry.
Hello.
Hi. My name is Danny. I have a question for the panel. I think the idea of co-working and co-living is kind of similar. Can we combine it into one place? I don't know. That's why the question. Sorry.
Combining
co-living and co-working.
I mean, I don't look, guys, this is, maybe we just keep it between us. We're about to launch one, but just don't tell anyone. But to be honest, if you create your co-working space good enough, people never want to leave and they sleep here. And you're laughing because we get people who sleep here.
You sleep here?
I sleep here. No, but I think you can combine the two. Having them in one space is different, but I think you touched on it as well. I think co-living and co-working have a lot of synergies and similarities. So I think you'll find that the two will intertwine eventually. It just takes one person to come up with a concept to make it work and to make it stack up. But yeah, I think you can do the both. Just as an example, you know, we got into flexible living or co-living because we have a lot of clients who live in Singapore and they come here Monday to Friday and they want somewhere just as cool to live, but they don't want to be at the Hyatt or maybe M Gallery or somewhere else, but they want something inspiring and flexible. And so that's why they come in here and you know, they look at both. So yes.
I think there's a practical part of this as well, though, and that's about the revenue, no? So if you're a downtown District 1 building, you're probably going to make more money from the co-working than from the co-living on a meter rate. But yeah, I do think there's a future in it, and maybe some of the decentralized locations, like, because everyone's sort of moving toward the hybrid, this in itself is a hybrid sort of facility, right? So, but yeah, downtown, lease it as an office, you'll make more money.
And you know, I think combining co-living and co-working can also help you to utilize your facilities a lot better, because you know, like certain areas you can use, you know, during the daytime for the office people, and then at the evening, you know, when certain people come back home, they can still use the pantry, for example. So that you have a lot more movie night. Yeah, you can. So probably you should install a few bedrooms up there, you know. Yeah.
Just don't copy it. I came up with it first. Okay.
Does it answer your question? Or where does it come from? Like, why you want to combine the living and working together?
It was just an idea because I see the similarity. I see there's a lot of efficiency can be gained from such idea. The first panel was talking about property, right? The second panel is talking about the value added on that property. So you have the property, you add more value, and then you add the tech. And that tech gonna magnify, gonna expand the value of the whole thing much more than you add the tech on each individual thing. So I was thinking if we combine everything at once and add the tech later, so that would be big, I hope. So, but thank you for your answers.
There's one thing that I'm not sure if you guys watch We Crashed, the WeWork series on not Netflix but Amazon, right? So it mentioned something about Adam. So he used to live in this kind of communal living in Israel. Any ring a bell? So I think it's kind of like we've been living or working too separately as as individuals, right? Spending too much time on screen, and maybe this is the time where people start thinking about bringing it all back together. I don't know whether it's where your idea comes from, but yeah,
Vietnam's had co-living for a long time, right? We've got multi-generational homes here for 1,000 years plus, right? So as a concept, I can see adoption, and certainly in the youngers, yeah. The WeWork thing sounds like they were having a great time. I wish I was there before it blew up.
Any more questions for the panel?
Okay.
We're actually quite good with time. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for the panelists. Please stay in the stage. We'll have some gifts and flowers. Want to give you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
My name is Denise, and I'm the co-founder of Moderator, a co-investment platform on blockchain. So when I come here, it's quite amazing that we have such an ecosystem for PropTech communities, and also I believe that hosting such events to connect people in the industry is very important, because when you start something new, and PropTech, to be honest, is quite small for now, and we need more and more resources and more collaboration among different parties in the ecosystem to grow each other and grow PropTech. Yeah. So I think it's good to have you guys.
House Group là đơn vị tiên phong trong lĩnh vực dịch vụ bất động sản tại Việt Nam. Với mong muốn chuyển đổi số cho thị trường bất động sản, được kiến tạo từ 3 mô hình PropTech, Fintech và Mobile Commerce, hệ sinh thái House khát vọng vươn tầm Đông Nam Á với những giải pháp công nghệ hiệu quả, ứng dụng sâu rộng vào đời sống thực tế, phục vụ cho các cộng đồng như mua bán bất động sản, nhà môi giới, cư dân, nhân viên văn phòng và cộng đồng các nhà đầu tư. Hệ thống công ty thành viên của hệ sinh thái House bao gồm House Agent, dịch vụ môi giới bất động sản trên nền tảng số; House Commerce, nền tảng tích hợp đa tiện ích cho cộng đồng cư dân; House Invest, giải pháp đầu tư bất động sản an toàn, hiệu quả từ nguồn vốn nhỏ. Các sản phẩm của hệ sinh thái House bao gồm House Agent Pro, House Building, House Service, House Map.
Bất động sản.com.vn khẳng định vị trí số 1 với 5 triệu người dùng thường xuyên, 70,5 triệu lượt xem trang, 12,5 triệu phiên truy cập và 1 triệu tin đăng mỗi tháng.